The house call. They say the country is quiet at night, peaceful, but peace is only comforting when you're not alone with your thoughts. Take Henry, an old farmer out on the edge of town. His house stood crooked against the dark horizon, its paint long peeled, its porch sagging like a tired old man's shoulders. It was the kind of place that remembered winters with cracked boards and whistling drafts, where the silence after sundown pressed so hard it felt like weight on the chest. Henry had grown used to that silence. Since his wife passed, 3 years gone now, he'd filled it with her voice. Not really, of course, but in whispers. Sometimes, when the loneliness dug too deep, he'd sit in her rocking chair and speak into the dark, pretending her answer would float back, pretending her shadow still warmed the corner by the fireplace. The neighbors said he was fading. The kind of man who stayed behind while time walked on without him. But Henry still did his chores, fed the hens, tended the corn, kept the routine like clockwork, because routine was safer than thinking. Lately, though, even the routine couldn't guard him. At first, it was the porch creaking under invisible steps. Then the sound of boots dragging across dirt, stopping just shy of the door. He told himself it was the wind. Always the wind. Because wind was easier than the truth, that something had started visiting him after midnight. And then came the knocks. 3 sharp raps on the farmhouse door at 3 in the morning. Always 3. Always precise. The first time, Henry didn't move. The second, he loaded the shotgun and sat breathing in the dark until the sun rose. The third time, he dared to look through the peephole. And what he saw was not the wind. It was a man in an old doctor's coat, long and gray, holding a black bag in one hand, his face pale, his voice low and gravelly. "I've come for your wife," the stranger said. But Henry's wife had been dead for years. The porch was empty. Cold night air swept in, stinging Henry's skin. The boards creaked under his boots as he stepped out, shotgun raised, eyes darting. Nothing but the field stretching into darkness. Nothing but the wind moaning through the trees. But there were footprints, muddy, heavy, pressed deep into the wood. They trailed from the steps to the porch rail, and then stopped, just stopped, as if the figure had vanished into thin air. Henry's chest tightened. He backed inside, bolted the door, and sat in his chair with the shotgun across his lap until dawn. Sleep never came. The next morning, he told himself it was a dream. It had to be. A trick of grief, or the mind playing games in the small hours. But when he opened the door again, the prints were still there. Dark mud smeared across the porch like bruises. That night, Henry poured himself a drink. 1 drink became 3. By midnight, he sat in the living room with the shotgun propped against his knee, eyes glued to the clock on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. 3 o'clock. The pounding started again, louder this time. The walls rattled with each strike. Henry staggered to the door, half drunk, half awake. Through the peephole, the doctor was back. Same coat, same bag, same voice hissing through the crack. "I've come for your wife," Henry shouted through the door, voice cracking. "She's dead. Leave her be." But the figure didn't move. He just kept standing there, breathing heavy, fogging the glass with each word. "You'll see her soon." Rage burned through Henry's fear. He unbolted the door and flung it wide, shotgun raised. But again, nothing, just footprints. This time they stretched farther, across the yard, into the dirt. He followed them with the barrel of the gun, but they ended halfway across the grass, cut off like a torn page. That night, Henry didn't bother sleeping. He sat on the porch till sunrise, watching the yard, waiting for the thing to return. But by the third night, the knocks came again, and this time the voice called his name, Henry. Not her name anymore. His. Henry's breath fogged the glass as he pressed his face closer, shotgun trembling in his hands. His ears strained for any hint of movement, wind in the trees, the shuffle of boots. But there was nothing, just the prints. They shone wet in the moonlight, glistening like blood, fresh, too fresh. Henry's heart thudded against his ribs. He stepped out onto the porch, barrel aimed straight at the darkness. His boots landed right inside the stranger's steps. 1, 2, 3. The prints stopped. But Henry didn't. He leaned forward, peering into the field. The corn stood motionless, stalks black against the sky. The barn squatted in silence, roof sagging under years of weight. No movement, no sound. And then he heard it. Not a footstep, not a knock, a whisper. "Henry." It came from everywhere at once, behind him, inside the house, right against his ear. His whole body jolted. He swung the shotgun, finger white on the trigger. "Show yourself," he barked, but his voice broke halfway through. The whisper came again, low, dragging, gravel wrapped in smoke. "Henry, it's time." The door slammed behind him with a crack like a gunshot. The porch shuddered under his feet. He spun back, chest heaving, only to see the doctor, standing in the doorway, coat gray as ash, bag in one hand, face pale, eyes hollow. "I've come," the man rasped, "for you." Henry froze. The gun shook in his grip. He could smell the man, earth and rot, the damp of open graves. His finger curled around the trigger. He thought of his wife, her laugh, her rocking chair waiting in the corner. For one wild moment he believed. If he pulled that trigger, maybe he could drive this thing back. Maybe he could hold on to what little life he had left. But the doctor didn't move. He just waited. Still as stone. Patient. Henry screamed, raised the shotgun, and fired. The blast lit the porch, the field, the night itself. White fire against the dark. When the smoke cleared, the doorway was empty. Only the muddy prints remained, and they were leading into Henry's house. The sheriff was the first to step into the farmhouse. He'd known Henry for 40 years, shared beers with him at the Legion Hall, bought corn from his stand every summer. Now he stood over the old man's body, hat clutched in both hands, throat tight. Henry sat in his chair like he'd been waiting, shotgun across his knees, mouth slightly open as though he'd been about to say something or answer someone. His eyes, though, those eyes weren't the eyes of a man drifting off in sleep. They were wide, startled, staring at the door. There wasn't a mark on him. No bruise, no cut, no sign of struggle. His heart had simply stopped. The doctor from town signed the death certificate, shook his head, muttered about age and stress. But the deputies whispered about something else. They pointed to the porch boards where muddy footprints still stained the wood. Heavy, uneven. They stretched from the door to the chair inside, and then stopped, as if the visitor had taken root right there. The neighbors said Henry had been fading for weeks. They told stories of him muttering to himself in the fields, sitting on the porch through the dead of night, waiting for something. One swore she saw a man standing at Henry's gate just before dawn, tall, pale, coat flapping in the wind. When she blinked, he was gone. They buried Henry beside his wife on the hill. A modest funeral, quiet words, the kind of send-off small towns know by heart. People shook their heads, said at least he'd gone peacefully. But the whispers didn't stop. Because when the undertaker closed Henry's eyes, he swore he felt them twitch beneath his fingers, like the old man was still seeing something standing at the door. And late at night, when the wind died and the country grew still, some folks claimed they could hear it echoing across the fields. 3 sharp knocks, always at 3 in the morning. In the weeks after Henry's death, the farm grew quieter than it had ever been. The chickens went untended, the corn shriveled, and the rocking chair on the porch never moved again. But the neighbors swore the house wasn't empty. More than one claimed to see a figure drifting up the lane at night. A tall man in a long coat, bag swinging at his side. He never knocked when anyone was watching. He only came when the world was silent, when the hour was darkest, when a house was heavy with grief. Some say Henry brought it on himself, answering the door when he should have stayed in bed, speaking to a thing that wasn't meant to be spoken to. Others insist the doctor would have come anyway. That's what he does. Makes his rounds, same as any physician, but his patients don't wake up better. What unsettles the town most isn't that Henry died. Old men die. It's that there wasn't a mark on him, no warning, no struggle, just a stillness. Like his heart had been signed off, his name scratched on a ledger only the doctor carried. And now, people bolt their doors tighter than before. They whisper prayers before sleep. Some keep candles burning at night, hoping the light will ward him off. But still, every so often, just before dawn, someone claims they hear it. 3 knocks, precise, cold, patient. The sound of a doctor making a house call. So tell me, if you heard knocking at your door at 3 a.m. and a voice said, "I've come for you," would you open it? Or would you sit in the dark, clutching the silence, and pray his rounds pass you by? Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If it left a chill in your bones, do me a favor. Like this video to help more people discover it. Subscribe so you never miss a tale, and share it with someone who needs a good scare tonight. There's another story waiting for you on your screen right now. Go ahead, click it, and I'll meet you there. Until then, Sleep well. I'll see you back tomorrow.